Greetings, programs, and welcome to the Awesome Friday podcast, a podcast where we speak about two movies every week. So, naturally, we'll be speaking about two TV shows this week. My name is Matthew, and with me, as always, is Simon. Say hello,
Hello.
Simon. How are
Hello,
you today?
everyone.
How are you this
Well,
week, this weekend?
this last 10 days has been a COVID blur. I would like to say that, dear listeners, I was hoping you could hear a difference in me sounding better, but I'm not entirely sure you can because it is persistent. It's a persistent little prick, COVID. I do feel better, although I did have to have an afternoon nap, although I'm not sure if that's COVID or me just being 45 now, but either way, I needed to have that nap after a very busy morning. But I'm okay. Both me and my wife are going kind of up and down. We're mostly better, but now and again we have like these ridiculous relapses. But it's 10 days now since symptoms began, which means I can go out. Even if I've still got symptoms, I can go out unmasked. I'm not transmissible anymore. I'm free.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that was the new guidance. I thought you were
Well,
supposed to still stay home if you had symptoms.
So on last Monday, which was the last day of Fan Expo, and it was my birthday, because I felt so much better on Sunday, I was like, tell you what, I've got one test left. Out of pure precaution, I'm going to take it in the morning, but I'm going to go to Fan Expo. I'm going to take my kids to Fan Expo because I should have been going on the Saturday for my birthday. And so I got up on Monday for my birthday. I'm like, oh, I still feel a little bit tired, but that's probably just because it's my birthday and blah, blah, blah. And I took the test, and it was like, if you've ever taken a COVID test, which I know you have, but I mean, you listeners, you get two lines. You get a control line, and then T, I don't know what T stands for, test maybe. If you have a line there, even a very faint line means you're positive, and a very dark line means you have maximum viral load, which sounds very, very pornographic. So I was expecting like nothing, and I looked at it after 50 minutes, and it was like someone had taken a marker and drawn the thickest, darkest line across T. And I'm like, oh shit. And so I started Googling, thinking, well, can I go out in an N95? It's my 5th day. I should be fine. And all the websites I read were like, hey, guess what? Omicron hangs around much longer than the other versions, and your biggest day will probably be day 6. I'm like, oh, great. And if you still are testing positive, or if you still have symptoms, then you shouldn't go out before day 10. By day 10, even if you've got a faint line on your positive thing, even if you've still got mild symptoms, so not like really productive stuff, just like tickling up, you can go out. You're fine. By day 10, you're not transmissible anymore. It's just really annoying. Oh, am I boring you?
I'm just quite tired.
This is how I have felt for the last 10 days. So thank you for being sympathetic.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
I think it's remarkable that, given that I work with the public in my day job, that I haven't had it as far as I'm aware yet. But I'm glad that you're through it, and I'm glad that you're better.
So I got it from my kids,
and I'm glad your kids seem to have just shrugged it off.
Yeah, they did. They did really quickly, which is really nice. But I think, as long as you are not kissing and embracing your customers, I don't know what customer service works like in drugs these days, but as long as you're not being physical with them, you've got a far better chance. With kids, you don't really stand any chance whatsoever. But try not to leap on your customers.
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
How are you? Tell me about your life in the last week.
Oh, it's been great. Nothing. I've just been working and going to school and trying to fit in watching stuff for our podcast. So, my life's pretty boring. I don't even have a good I got sick story to tell at the moment, which is fine.
I do find this whole thing about talking about two TV shows a little it's quite hard to focus on anything that isn't fucking Russia or Putin at the moment, and we're not. I don't think we're going to talk about it much, are we? But I'm finding everything a little unimportant at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean parts of the world are on fire.
Yeah,
not just figuratively anymore.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this on what I believe is day 4 of Russia's invasion
yeah,
of the Ukraine, and the whole thing seems effed up. And it feels a little bit like 1939, and I'm choosing not to focus on that today.
yes, indeed. Okay,
So,
so what are we going to talk about today?
so we have 2 TV shows to talk about. One from Apple TV Plus, which has just had its 7th of 8 episodes broadcast yesterday, actually, called The Afterparty, and another one that's coming out this coming Thursday from Hulu in the States and Disney Plus here in Canada, called The Dropout, which is the Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos story. And we're going to start with The Afterparty because well, we've seen an equal number of it, and it's already almost done. So we're going to talk about that one first. Um, why don't you give us a rundown on the after party, Simon? Just give us the Coles Notes version of the
Right.
after party.
So I'm going to be very, very careful with this because the more you watch, the more you learn. But the general synopsis is there is a high school reunion with a bunch of people at the high school
Hmm.
reunion, and they all have the like lingering feelings about each other, good feelings, bad feelings, and so on. And one of their group is now a like mega pop star, like
Hmm.
mega star, Xavier.
Yeah.
Um, and it does remind me of he's a pop star, keep on never stop popping or whatever it's called, never stop stopping, that kind of pop star. Like he's wearing an open, like gleaming, uh, uh, like suit jacket. He's got bleach tips. He talks in like the cool sort of pop star cool, and he's I mean it's Dave Franco, and Dave Franco can do shit eating grin like really really well,
Hmm.
and everyone is either kind of secretly makes fun of him or is in awe of him for various reasons, and it's a big ensemble piece. So there's lots of different characters who are there for lots of different reasons, and he wants to show off, so he takes a bunch of people back to his pad, his beautiful apartment up on a like mountain cliffside for an after party. That's why it's called the after party. This is after the high school reunion, and the very first thing you see in the first episode is him plummeting to his death. This is not a spoiler. It's like literally the first thing.
Yeah.
Hits his head on a rock on a rocky beach, and he's dead. And the police are called in, and a detective played by Tiffany Haddish is told in no uncertain terms to just take statements and prepare for the proper detective who's coming in the morning. But she sees this as her chance to solve this case. She's really hungry to solve this case. And so she knows she has one night, and she wants to try and solve that case in one night by interviewing everyone individually. And each episode is a different account of the story from that person's perspective, and each episode has a different genre as a framing device, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really quite wonderful, actually. First off, it's a really good single location murder mystery story. Everyone with lots of, interlocking personal histories and lots of red herrings and uh, lots of motivations and revelations. Exactly the kind of thing you want from that kind of story. Very, uh, Agatha Christie esque, if you will. And then, yeah, every episode is a different genre of TV, and each one of them is amazing. I'm sure you're aware, but maybe our listeners aren't, that this is from Christopher Miller, who is one half of Lord and Miller, who are, of course, the guys who did and are now doing a reboot of Clone High and the Lego movies and 21
Say
and
it.
22 Jump Street.
No, you're missing out there. Their best work. I can't reach
And
it. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs
It's
one,
Cloudy with a
please.
Chance of Meatballs is them, and their best work. They were the producers, but not directors of
Spider.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the forthcoming Into the Spider-Verse sequels. Apparently, Christopher Miller has had this show baking in his brain for years now, according to a Twitter thread that I read from Phil Lord, and it really shows.
Yeah, it really does. It's
Yeah.
so brilliantly put together. I was thinking a lot about how, like the first episode. So the first person that is interviewed I don't remember her name, but it's a very. I don't want to spoil too much, but the genre in which her story is told is so uh, obvious and different. It's not at all in keeping with the rest of the episode, and it's really, really clever how he started with that, because it tells the audience straight away that this is going to happen. It's not a subtle shift like some of the other.
Oh, you're talking about the first, not the first episode's focus, but the first person that gets talked to is a woman, and
Is
her
that not the
little
first? Does she not
her
do that
like
in the first episode?
what's the first episode, but it's only like a few minutes long, where she gives a
Yeah,
brief recap of the party, and it's
yeah,
all
yeah,
French New Wave, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
As opposed to the first actual interview, which is an episode long.
And it's so well done, and it kind of sets the tone for this whole what's going to happen in the whole rest of the show. And that's what I really love about Lord and Miller stuff, is that it's there's so much knowledge about what makes a good story and how to tell that story in interesting and fun ways in all of their things. Everything is just so precise, and this has so many moving parts. It's just really delicious. Sometimes a TV show for me gives just feels like I'm eating something delicious. Like every mouthful gives me a different flavor, and every episode kind of pulls back the curtain in interesting ways. And we've watched 7 out of 8 episodes now, and so things are starting to reveal themselves a bit more. And aside from the genre leaps, and they've all been brilliant. They've all been absolutely fantastic. Like maybe we won't ruin all of them, but the 90s high school, like the party at the guy's house, the other
Yeah.
party, the 90s, is done in like the whole thing is like the opening credits of like Dawson's Creek kind of style, and it's really clever that it's not going for like stupid parody, right? It's not going for ridiculousness. It's kind of
It's
finds this middle point.
every I think everything they do. I think everything that Lord Miller. I think what makes Lord and Miller kind of great is that everything they do is clearly a loving homage as opposed to a parody.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know.
fine line though.
Yeah, I mean they're making, it's the difference between, though, like making fun with versus making fun of
Hmm.
someone, right? Like they're
Yeah,
always making fun with.
yeah,
And yeah, the 90s teen drama episode is pretty great.
so great.
I think it also helps that he's managed to assemble like a cast of comedy character actor all stars
Hmm.
for this
Yeah.
ensemble. With, I mean, Tiffany Haddish in the lead as the detective, but Sam Richardson, who had a huge year last year with Werewolves Within, and he was in the Tomorrow War with Chris Pratt, and he's probably best known to me anyway as being a long running character on Veep. Is hilarious all the time. He's got pitch perfect delivery,
Mhm.
along with Ben Schwartz, your favorite guy from
Oh my
Parks
fucking
and
god.
Rec, and in this show, and Ike Barinholtz, who's always hilarious.
Uh,
And Zoe Chow, I'm not too familiar with, but she is pretty wonderful as the sort of
hmm.
unrequited crush from high school.
Hmm.
And Ileana Glazer, who has just got that perfect sort of broken girl energy that she brings to many
Yeah.
of her roles, especially after Broad City that she was on. And Dave Franco, I mean, what can you say? He's
Hmm.
this superior Franco. The
Yeah.
one that has been a big surprise to me, even though he shouldn't be, is Jamie Demetriou, who
Hmm.
plays a character called Walt, who I only know for two things. One, he was in the first season of it's gone out of my brain. I can see her face. Posh comedian looks at the camera, falls in love with
Oh,
a priest.
the monologue. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, why can't? Oh shit!
Why did,
What
like,
is that?
every time I need to remember a
Okay,
name.
I'm just gonna Google hot priest, and I'm sorry what comes up is who's the actor who plays Fleabag? Jesus Christ!
Fleabag, there we go. That's the
Oh
one.
my god!
So yeah, he was in. There's two things I know this guy for. He was in the first season of Fleabag,
Yeah.
and he is the brother of the woman
Hmm.
who plays Nadja on What We Do in the Shadows.
And they're both in Eurovision.
Yeah,
which is
and they're
lovely.
both really funny.
Yeah, I always like watching brothers and sisters act together. It just makes me feel fun. Yeah, he's fantastic in this, and it's weird because his role is to be so much in the background as to be unnoticeable. That's his thing, that nobody ever knows who he is, even when they're in his house.
Yeah.
And again, it's such a fine line, isn't it? The whole cast is amazing at not overplaying this. But I mean, for me, I could watch Ben Schwartz in anything. Anything. I first saw him in the comedy specials on Netflix quite recently. I hadn't really, because I hadn't watched Parks and Rec, so I didn't really know who he was. And he's done 3 long form improvisation specials on Netflix with Thomas Middleditch from that
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley show, where they get. I don't know. Have you seen these?
I
3
haven't watched them
specials?
yet. No, actually.
So I've just rewatched one with my wife, but they basically get a story at the beginning and then improv for an hour, multiple characters, multiple stories, tying it all together, and much of it I can't actually. I haven't seen because I was crying, laughing too hard. But his delivery and his like improvisation skills are just next level. He is so good. Also, the voice of Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I still
so
haven't seen that movie either. So
But that combination, I'd never seen Sam Richardson before in anything, and he's got like he's clearly made himself a bit lower, so Ben Schwartz's Jasper can be this bigger character, but Sam Richardson's like delivery of his lines, his comic like timing is amazing. I really want to watch Werewolves Within that because I saw he was in it. So
yeah,
those two
you should.
together are fantastic.
If you are a fan of political satire, you should also just catch him in Veep because Veep is.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever watched in the UK. It was called In the Loop. Is that what it was
No,
called?
I didn't. Yeah.
With Doctor Who,
What's
whose name is
yeah,
also escaped my brain at the moment.
Peter
Capaldi.
Garibaldi, Capaldi.
Capaldi. Yeah. So it's by the same creator, like they exist in the same universe. Just one is British and one is American. But Veep, he's so good in Veep as he starts out as like a fairly low level aide, and he's always just the guy who in the background like says the practical thing, but he's saying it among all these people who are acting so big and so ridiculous that every time he opens his mouth, it's hilarious. And he plays like just this total straight laced nerd, and he's always really really funny.
hmm
So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more we can talk about the show because I don't want to spoil any part of it.
Okay, I
But
just wanted to.
I will say
Yeah.
that the other thing that makes I think Lord and Miller great, and I guess in particular Miller because it's very apparent in this show is that so every episode is a different genre, but also told from the perspective of a different character, and so the show will really reward you, I think, if you're paying attention, and B if you rewatch it because there's so many little details.
hmm
The main one I can give you an example of is that so there's Ike Barinholtz's character is the ex-husband of Zoe Chow's character, and in every episode, Zoe Chow is wearing this very adorable outfit. She's wearing a black skirt and a red leather jacket, and and boots, and she looks dynamite the whole time. And in the episode that is from his point of view, her shirt is a little more low cut, and she's wearing fishnet stockings. And
And
there's
it's so
just a
subtle, isn't it?
and there's a ton of little stuff like that in every episode where
Mhm.
not only like the big details of a given story will change as they come from a different point of view, but a lot of the little details change too. And I really appreciate that level of attention that they put into the show.
Yeah. No, it's like, and I mentioned that to you as well. How brilliantly subtle that was. And
Yeah.
again, the whole thing is not overplayed. I'm going to spoil one episode. I'm sorry. Like we've mentioned, all the episodes are from the perspectives of the different people, and Ben Schwartz's Jasper used to be in a ska band with Xavier, and he split up the ska band when Xavier went pop, and but he's still like a recording artist. So he's at the party, the after party. He wants Xavier to bless his track, to bless his track, And so his whole mind is music. So when we see his flashback, there are three songs in his flashback that are legitimate, absolute fucking like
I think
bangers.
you're burying the lead that his episode is a musical, but
Well,
yes,
I mean, I try and
all three
I,
songs in his episode. And to be fair, his
yeah.
episode was like 4 or 5 weeks ago, so it's not that big of a spoiler. But
Oh my god. And it's
all
episode
three,
3, so you'll get to it quickly.
yeah, all three songs are genuine bangers and written by John
Oh,
LaJoy, who's
oh
always
my god.
funny.
And the first one clearly is like him thinking, how close to Lin-Manuel Miranda can I get without being sued? Like it's so
You see, you say that
pseudo Hamilton.
you say that, but at the same time, being a longtime fan of John LaJoy, um, they're purely John LaJoy songs.
Hmm.
He has a style, and these songs adhere to said style.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. But there's definitely like if you know your Hamilton, you'll definitely pick up the echoes. It's just so brilliantly done, and the three songs that are in there are fully choreographed
yeah.
numbers,
Oh yeah, it's
and
a full blown musical.
are so brilliant. And Ben Schwartz is so brilliant in it. And honestly, the most recent episode, I didn't like at all.
Interesting.
I like the whole crux of the show is like episode 3. Every episode is someone from this ensemble with a strong genre, and the last episode kind of takes us out of the ensemble and gives us a much more straightforward kind of story. And I'm
Well,
just
yeah,
like,
it's a different
I, I
it's a different kind of. It's hard to talk about with spoilers, but
yeah,
where most of the
yeah,
other ones are sort of heightened ones, like there's an action movie episode and there's a musical episode and there's a psychological thriller episode, and the most recent episode is just kind of a straightforward police procedural episode.
yeah.
um, and I disagree that it takes me out of it, but it focuses on a character that I don't necessarily think needs to be focused on exactly. But
No, no, I agree. But this
either
is
way, it doesn't matter because next week is the finale, and I kind
oh, it's
of,
gonna be so good.
you've been watching it as it released, but I had screeners for it before it was released, so I've been waiting for 7 weeks, 10 weeks to see the finale.
Oh no, wait! You didn't get the finale in your screeners.
No, the screeners they only gave us episodes 1 to 7, so
Oh no, that would.
we've been waiting for the finale since I watched it.
Oh god, that would have driven me crazy. So
Yeah.
my wife, who is really into the show and very, very intelligent, way more intelligent than me, she's doing the thing you do, where she's like, "Oh, do you want to know? Do you want to know what I think?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, no, I don't." She's like, she'll watch something and go, "Oh, right." Like, do you want to know? Do you know what's going to happen? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't get stuff. Right? I think I think I turn off when I watch something like this. I think I pretty actively turn off the part of my brain that tries to work out what's going to happen, because I love the moment of revelation if I haven't worked something out. Like it's a chemical high for me.
Oh, we love
And
that moment too. It just comes a lot earlier.
but she is utterly confident. She has now picked up on all the clues and she knows what's going to happen. I'm sure you do too. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to know. Don't tell me.
Honestly, I have a theory, or at least I remember having a theory because it has been like 10 weeks since I watched this. But um, I also fully expect some major revelatory twist that's going to mess things up in the finale.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. So yeah, highly, highly recommended. It's one of the most entertaining things I've seen on as a TV show in a long, long, long time. Really
Yeah.
brilliant.
Well, that's the after party. It is an Apple TV Plus exclusive and original, and the finale episode will be airing on this coming Friday, March the 4th.
Right.
Which is a great segue to the next show we're going to talk about, which is going to be premiering on Thursday, March the 3rd. See what I did there? Date-based
Well,
segue. Yeah. Takes skill to pull that off, apparently.
it does. And you did it really well. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, the Dropout is a forthcoming Hulu or Disney Plus here in Canada series starring Amanda Seyfried and Naveen Andrews, and it is a dramatization of the podcast of the same name called The Dropout, which tells the story of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. Which, if you did you know anything about the show or the story going
I,
in? I don't.
yeah, I
I'm
followed the story.
fascinated by the whole story. I just don't know how far-reaching the story actually is at this point.
I certainly followed the story with interest when it was peaking, when it all came out about what had happened and
Hmm.
all the shit hit the fan. I followed the story and then honestly completely forgot about her and it until it's interesting. Just before we got screeners for this, there was some article about her facing a continued charge of something, and then this came up. But honestly, I'd never given her another thought.
It's probably because the she was actually only recently her trial only recently finished. She was found guilty on about half of the charges she was charged with, and she's currently awaiting sentencing because her partner in crime, Sonny, who in the show is played by Naveen Andrews, is his trial is actually set to start in like a week, like in the week after next, I think. So
Uh,
this is actually technically an ongoing story.
mm,
Um,
well,
but basically, for those of you who don't know, Elizabeth Holmes was a young woman who wanted to change the world, and she, at a very young age, founded a company called Theranos, and her whole thing was they were going to be able to produce or perform uh, life-saving blood tests on minuscule amounts of drugs in a small or minuscule amounts of blood in a very small portable device. The company was worth at its height billions of dollars. She personally was valued by Forbes at like $9 billion. And from about 2000, this went on from about 2003 until just a few years ago. I think 2015 or 16 is when the
mhm.
big first article exposing them came out. That the whole thing was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. It was 100% a fraud, and this is an 8 episode dramatization of the whole story. Um, I don't know how much it's on the one hand I want to talk. I find this whole story very compelling. I don't know how much we can talk about it, but on the other hand, it just happened in real life, so I don't really know how much we can spoil exactly.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Like, if you've been following the story, there's no spoilers whatsoever. But if I think we'll have to spoil some things to talk about it. But it is all like you can just Wikipedia this and find out exactly what happened.
Yeah. Well, how many of the
Um,
episodes you've watched? So we did get screeners for the first. There's 8 episodes, so I think Simon, you watched
I
three
watched
of
three.
them,
Yeah.
and my wife and I have now watched 7, which is what they've given to us. So we again another situation we've seen all of it except for the finale.
All right.
Um, and I think we have differing opinions, but we'll have a. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason for that as well, which we've touched on earlier this week actually, but we will talk about
So
it in more detail.
I am. You've talked about a certain shift after episode 4. I am totally fine with you spoiling the shit out of this in order to make your point. I don't need you to tread on eggshells at all. I don't. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch anymore. But even if I do, I don't care if you tell me stuff that's coming up. So maybe we should have a mild spoiler warning. If you want to go into this completely blind, maybe stop listening.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we'll talk a little more as spoiler free as possible about the first 3 episodes, and I will
Yeah.
try and explain my position regarding the remaining episodes without spoilers, which is going to be slightly difficult, but I'll do my best. And if I
Mhm.
think I can't do it, I'll just peace out of it. Um, so I mean, first up, what did you enjoy the first? So I enjoyed the whole thing. Um, I personally don't.
um,
It's an interesting thing that there's sort of a lot going on with the show in that it's very recent and it's a story that I've been paying attention to. So there's not really a lot in it that I didn't know already. Uh,
mhm.
Either because I have listened to a few episodes of the podcast, and I also watched a documentary that HBO produced a couple years ago called The Inventor, which basically is a 2-hour version of this whole story using
Oh,
interviews and all that kind of stuff.
right, right.
I've also read the article that came out by John Carreyrou, who basically broke the story in the mid 2010s that Theranos was a fraud.
Mm,
I have read
yeah,
that article, that at least the first article of that whole series. So there's not a lot that I didn't know. That
yeah.
being said, I don't think a great show necessarily needs to have surprises if it's well produced, well written, well shot, and well acted, and the show is all of those things.
So my,
So,
my take on this is similar to yours. I haven't listened to the podcast, but I was very, very aware of the story. Kind of fascinated with how far someone could get just by lying. Although it's in this day and age, it wouldn't surprise me anymore. But uh, I think what I there's nothing in this show that is for me a creative or interesting way to tell a story. I feel like I've seen this story in different forms so many times before. Like the style it's made, and like you've got a kooky inventor who's borderline sociopath at times, who has a singular vision and who'll go through anyone to do it. And um, I do like stories where small steps lead to big repercussions. So I do like that kind of, she has to do this in order to make this work, and then she has to do another step to make that work, and it's just a system of covers and covers leading to that big demo in front of the pharmaceutical company. I don't remember.
mm-hmm.
So I do enjoy stories that kind of do that, that have someone, a person or a group of people covering up everything over and over and over, and it's like frog in a pot, isn't it? They don't realize how much shit they're getting into until they're deep in that shit. So I do like stories like that, but it didn't feel like there was anything interesting for me in how this was handled, and that I knew I knew the story, so there was no wow factor. And wow, she really, this is, I can't believe she said this and did this, because I knew everything already. Um, I The way it was portrayed, I felt was kind of cliched, and it what some parts. I know it was a rough cut we saw, but some parts weren't particularly well made or done. I thought Amanda Seyfried was fantastic. I haven't
So I
really
will
seen
say
her.
about the
Wait.
yeah. Go ahead.
I just on the point of Amanda Seyfried, I haven't really seen her in anything where I've thought, wow, she's good before. And maybe that's coloured by Mamma Mia, because I really, really hate that movie. But she is like really good in this, and
Yeah.
so that's impressed me. And there's no one bad in the cast. There's a guy I really like. Oh God, I'm so sorry. He's one of the engineers. Utkarsh Ernbakka. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. I've no idea what that bunch of stuff is, but I really like him as an actor. Naveen Andrews is always good anyway. But
Yep.
um, Amanda Seyfried has really impressed me. So if I keep watching, it will be to see what she does with her performance. Sorry, what were you going to say?
So I will say that obviously it's worth pointing out that the screeners we had were a very rough cut, and I will warn you that if you decide to keep watching them, they only get rougher. um, and I'm sure that that's just a technical thing. They're rushing. They're trying to get the episodes done in time for broadcast. So the show premieres with 3 episodes on Thursday, and those ones are pretty close to being done. But the later in the series you go, the more like missing ADR there is, and obviously temp effects and that kind of thing. That doesn't generally bother me if I know it's why it's happening. Um, what I guess what I will say is that I think a very good way to describe this show, especially the first 3 episodes, is that it's a very good version of exactly what it is, if that makes sense. Right? Like there's not a lot of surprises. A lot of the story beats will feel familiar. Um, there's no necessarily big revelatory thing or new exciting thing, but everything about it is still good. You know, like
Mm.
again, like like I said before, like it's well shot, it's well acted, it's well written, it's well produced. It's not totally surprising, but the performances are there. Enough is there that I think it's definitely worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree too. I think the cast is uniformly great, and it's got a pretty great cast. I mean, Amanda Seyfried as in the lead with Naveen Andrews. They're both, I believe, Academy Award nominees. I believe. Um, her for Mank and him, I believe he was nominated. I think for The English Patient, wasn't he? It's like his big thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's
Maybe.
got William H Macy and Laurie Metcalf and Elizabeth Marvel and Utkarsh Ambedkar. Uh, who else? Michael Ironside is in this. Bill Irwin is in this. Like a lots, and Alan Ruck is in this. Like lots of great. Kurtwood Smith, Sam Waterston. Um, it's basically a constellation of stars, of
Mm-hmm.
character actors, and they're uniformly great. And Seyfried in particular really nails that sort of awkwardness that Elizabeth Holmes had in real life. If you've ever seen her speak or interact in any way, it
Mm-hmm.
really nails her. And I also think, and it's weird to think that I'm about to say this out loud, but this part was apparently originally meant to be played by Kate McKinnon, and I think that the change, and I don't mean to say this to disparage Kate McKinnon in any way, but I think that the change was 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Kate McKinnon. I think that Amanda Seyfried is a much better choice for the role.
Why's
Like,
that?
like literally, my only note about Amanda Seyfried is that I think she's a little bit physically too short for the part. I think Elizabeth Holmes was a taller woman in real life, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that is that the part requires you to play the role from the ages of like 19 to 35, and despite being only I think 18 months different in age, I'm not sure that Kate McKinnon could really pull off 18
No,
in the
that's
same
true.
way. And I kind of worry that she might have gone. And to be fair, Kate McKinnon's a great actor. She has a great range, but
Mm,
it's
she
the kind of
is.
thing where I kind of worry it might have gone just like it's the kind of role that needs to come right up to the brim but not go over, you know. And Kate
Mm-hmm.
McKinnon is sort of at her best when she goes over. So I think that Seyfried was is probably a better pick for the role.
It's interesting. At the end of episode 3, it kind of addresses something I was wondering, which is because we see a mix of 2017 interview footage that they've recreated and earlier Elizabeth Holmes, and the voice is completely different. The mouth is completely different, and so I was thinking, oh, what on earth is Amanda Seyfried doing with that voice? Like, why is she doing that voice? And the show actually answers that
Mm-hmm.
pretty well. Actually, it handles that really well. And what's my point? What did I say? Why did I start talking about this? The so
Something to
maybe
do with her
this
performance.
so Kate McKinnon, right? So Kate McKinnon, I think, has huge potential to do. Okay, right, okay. When she's picking out her voice and it's direct to camera, and she's trying this, even her accent changed. Like she does this, like really like drawly,
Yeah.
uh, like meaningful. She wants to be her own Steve Jobs. I could see Kate McKinnon doing that kind of mental shift really well. I think she'd be fantastic in this. I totally agree with you. She would not have made a convincing 18-year-old. Amanda Seyfried looks 18. In fact, Amanda Seyfried has a problem making a convincing adult. So
Yeah.
maybe she's got the reverse problem. But I think that kind of sociopathic psychosis that's creeping in, uh, I think McKinnon would have done really well. But yeah, the younger scenes would have been a hard sell, definitely.
Yeah, and again, I think that's just a difference of opinion, right? I don't think that Kate McKinnon would have been bad. I think it would have been just been different in a way that I might not have liked as much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And all of those scenes, like there's a we sort of have to get into talking about the rest of the episodes to talk about it a little bit more. But I think, and this is just so I'm not going to spoil anything, but I am going to say why I think Simon should keep watching and why I think you should keep watching. The first 3 episodes are very good. There's a notable shift in tone in the 4th episode that continues through the rest of the series. And without going into any detail at all as to how or why this happens, should I have to go into some detail? Basically, so the first 3 episodes portray Holmes in a relatively positive light. Not like she's a hero or anything, but in a non-negative way. She's just an idealistic kid, probably on the spectrum, who wants to change the world, wants to grow up and form a company and change the world and eliminate needles because her mother hates needles and she faints at the sight of blood and all this kind of stuff. And there's a moment where it becomes clear that she's not just an idealistic kid who might be on the spectrum, she's a fucking sociopath. And there's a moment where it happens. And there's an earlier moment where she makes a choice and you're like, well, okay, that's fine. But then in episode 4, it becomes clear, like, no, she's just a sociopath. Like, and it takes a real villain turn with her. And it's already done a pretty good job by the end of episode 3 of establishing that Sunny, that Nevian Andrews' character, is not a good person. But that also becomes a lot more clear. And if you know anything about the real life trial that she's just been through, where she basically blamed it, in real life she's just said it was all Sunny. Like, all of it was Sunny. But the show makes it clear that they are equal partners. Like, he's an abuser and he's a piece of shit and he's very controlling, but there is many points in this story where she could have made the right choice and just didn't, and decided to carry on. And it's I find it I mean, again, I've listened to some of the podcasts and I've already seen the documentary and I've read all the material, and somehow this story that I'm now experiencing for the 4th time remains compelling in the back half, and that is impressive to me.
Do you, because you have knowledge of how it actually played out in real life, is the show sensationalizing it, the story? Like, how, this is something I thought a lot when I was watching the first 2 episodes. Is like, I don't remember the exact details of everything. And there's moments like the spilt blood vials, for example, when the guy comes over. Like, how much of this show is a dramatization of the 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 kind of attitude of it rather than the day-to-day happenings of it? Do you know how truthful it is, or do you think about that for the rest of it?
So as far as I can tell, it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the podcast, and I'm 100% sure there's some dramatization elements in it. I mean, I doubt they had access to, like, any scene that isn't in public must be invented, right? But I'm also sure that the writers, the podcasters, and I mean John Carreyrou as well, had inside sources telling them these things. So I believe that and again, I think this is an important distinction, and I think the reason why I think you should give at least episode 4 a chance is that it does become clear. The first 3 episodes, again, it's not really negative, right? Like, she's really, it's not positive, but it's a non-negative portrayal of her sort of wanting to be the good guy. But it starts in episode 3, but it really carries through in episode 4, where she's just a villain. She's a weird dark side version of Steve Jobs, like Steve Jobs if he was actually full of shit, you know. So yeah, I actually think it's more compelling in the back half than it is in the front half. But that's just me.
I do find the parallel. She's clearly obsessed with Steve Jobs and Apple, and Steve Jobs was many things, but the parallel is interesting because he was a bullshitter, but he was good at making what they actually had seem amazing, whereas she is trying to talk about things that don't exist sound amazing, and I find that an interesting parallel. And at the end of the 3rd episode, she's just opened her store and gone full like black turtleneck. So I, I am interested in seeing where it's going. I actually think that I'm curious about what else happens in a way, because there's 5 more episodes of this, and honestly, by the end of 3, it's like, well, there can't be that much more of this story to tell, because things are already pretty spectacularly falling apart in terms of people working out that this doesn't work, and people working out the contracts aren't real, and so I'm interested where 5 more episodes are going to come from in this story. So maybe I will keep watching.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because on the one hand, you would think that, but on the other hand, the whole, again, it's hard to call this a spoiler because it's all sort of out there. The show makes a really good use of jumping around time. So even
Mm-hmm.
though the end of episode 3 is the sort of closing of the Walgreens deal, which was a huge thing at the time, it's
Mm-hmm.
also still jumping back and forth, but also that's when, I mean, the first 3 episodes kind of cover basically a decade's worth of years, and then the
Mm-hmm.
last 5 are covering a much shorter span of time in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like John Carreyrou, the again, the journalist who wrote the initial sort of expose, doesn't even show up until episode 6.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a lot of ground to cover in more meaningful detail, and I think that might actually also just be part of why it's a little more compelling. There's a lot less jumping. There's a lot less jumping around. It still happens, but there's a lot less jumping around in time, and the rest of the story is told in a little more straightforward way. And there's a much clearer distinction, um, or progression of the story, and more importantly, again, the show's portrayal of her changes, and also it's super interesting to see who figures out that it's all bullshit, and when and why, and also who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, there's clearly people in the story that you who figure it out and never admit it, like they who figure it out and keep going,
Mm-hmm.
and that all becomes very compelling. So I think it's a pretty great show. I think they'll probably get a number of acting nominations this year out of it for
Yeah.
Seyfried, probably Naveen Andrews. Stephen Fry is also in this, and he is kind of perfectly cast. This is the kind of character actor supporting role that gets people awards at the big shows, and I legitimately hope that he does. Because his character story is very melancholy and very sad, and if you know what happens in real life, then it's a little devastating, and it's literally her fault. So,
Yeah.
um, like I say, the back half of the story gets more compelling, and I think it's a really good show, and I think people should watch it.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that's a pretty strong recommendation from you, because you've seen a lot this week. So
yeah, I mean,
this.
I would. The after party. What would you give the after party out of 5? Let's just do this now.
Oh, well, without it finishing, that's tricky.
Yeah,
Up until up until the most recent episode. Um, no, I'm gonna go 4. Like I am enjoying everything so much. I want to see how it ends. It could go up to a 5, but at the moment it's a 4. How about
right.
you?
For after party for me is also a 4. Um, I think that if I was still giving half points, I would probably give it a 4.5. It's pretty close to perfect. I know that you
Mm,
didn't like the most recent episode, but that
mm.
most recent episode is still a pretty pitch perfect, loving homage of police procedurals. um, what would you give the Dropout? I'm guessing is 3 out of 5.
It feels unfair to. I I'd go 2 at the moment. Like
Really? Well,
yeah, the performances are fine. Are good. Like I'm really impressed with Amanda Seyfried.
yeah.
I just haven't seen her in anything where she's done this kind of uh, this versatility. She is full in on this, and she's obviously staggering to look at, but she has got so much going on. Um, but the story for me is not one that is. I'm finding it incredibly cliched in the way it's telling its story. But I think I will carry on with it because I'm really interested to see to experience your take on it. So maybe I will
Well,
carry on.
for me, it's probably a 4 out of 5 so far. I
Oh.
think the as with the other show and with most things, the finale could swing that one way or the other. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been really enjoying it, and I fully admit that might just be that I find the whole thing. And again, it's the fourth time I've been through this story, and it's just been compelling every time. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. I don't like. It's just
Mm-hmm.
capitalism, It's fucked.
It
Um,
really is.
yeah. So, it's a pretty strong recommend for me, and it premieres on the
Mhm.
3rd, which is Thursday. So,
Yeah, so you should watch it.
yeah,
You at home should watch it
yeah.
if you want more. If you want some escapism, because God knows we need that right now. Maybe go
That's
watch it.
that's very true. Well, on
Mhm.
that bombshell, what are you up to this? Watching? What are we watching this week? Are we watching anything? We're probably watching something.
I was looking at the notes. I don't know. You're the organised one. You tell me what to watch and I watch it. What have we got coming up?
Yeah. So
The
we
Adam.
we don't we
Oh.
don't have anything we can talk about coming up this coming week just yet, but we do know that Disney Plus is dropping on. Sorry, West Side Story is dropping on Disney Plus this coming Wednesday, I believe, on the 2nd.
Mhm.
So chances are, when we next see you on the 6th, we'll be talking about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, let's do West Side Story. My
Yeah,
favorite film director doing one of my favorite musicals. Yeah, let's do that.
yeah, good, awesome. Well, on that bombshell, we're gonna say thank you for listening. We very much appreciate you. If you've liked what you've heard, you could give us a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice, or tell 2 friends, who can then tell 2 friends, who can tell 2 friends. Either way, we'd love you. If you'd like to support us more directly, we do have a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and you can find those all at awesomefriday.ca. We record this on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And no, that's pretty much it. We love you.
And we absolutely do love you. So good
Yeah.
luck. Stay safe out there. And we'll speak to you soon.
Indeed. Bye.
Bye.